Are you living as the object of someone else's desire, or are you living as the subject of your own innate desire? Let's talk about the difference between sexualization and sexuality and explore how the fundamental difference between these two concepts could be massively preventing you from unlocking connection and pleasure in your life. I'm Janelle, and I'm a sex educator, and in a world that is trying desperately to sexualize you, I am here to help you reclaim your innate sexuality. Before we dive into how you can do this, let's talk about the fundamental difference between sexualization and sexuality. The difference between these two is deeply profound, and it's something that we need to talk about so much more than we're actually talking about it. So essentially, sexualization is when we are existing as the object of someone else's desire. Essentially, we're living out the desires of others. Whereas sexuality is all about being the subject of your own desire and living out your innate desires. So the two actually can lead to the same end result, but it's all about the motivation of getting to that end result. Are we doing it because we're living out someone else's expectations and needs and wants of us, or are we doing it because it deeply connects to what we want and what we desire and what brings us joy and happiness? The unfortunate reality is that as women, we are raised to exist for the sexual satisfaction of others, not ourselves. Through direct and indirect forces within culture and media and peers, we are taught how to be sexualized and how to be seen as sexual objects, right? We learn how to dress a certain way and talk a certain way and act and exist simply as sexual objects that are there to exist for someone else's desire. We learn how to be admired and desired, and we're told that the greatest thing that could happen to us in life is to be chosen. And in this role as sexual objects, we are never the main character. It's not our story being told. We're a supporting act that's just moving someone else's story along. It's not about us at all. It's always about someone else. We aren't taught how to nurture our innate sexuality. We're not taught how to listen to our bodies and to know what our bodies are telling us. We're not taught how to act and exist in a way that centers ourselves. We're not given that space to have embodied experiences because we don't even always know what our wants and needs or desires are. We're never given that space to be the subject of our story, to be the subject of our desire and our pleasure and the experiences that we're having. We're not given that space to be the main character. So in this world that is constantly angling to sexualize you, I am here to help you reclaim your body, reclaim yourself, reclaim your sexuality, and to redefine your sexual framework so that it centers you, that it centers your needs, your wants, your desires, your pleasure. Also, that you are the subject of your story, that you are living out your desires, rather than simply being the object of someone else's sexual fantasy. So how do I help do this? So I have a 3-step framework to reclaiming your sexuality. I'm going to give you a little brief overview of it, but you can also dive into it in my free workshop. Go to the top of my page, access it. I promise that it will change your life. So in it, I share a framework, 3 steps. Step 1 is to build sexual knowledge that actually centers your body. So much of the sexual knowledge that we've learned growing up is either inaccurate or it's centered on someone else's body and not actually our body. Step 2 is to examine your sexual self, really understand who you are sexually and your existing sexual framework. So your framework is that system of sexual knowledge and values and expectations and perceived norms and rules that work together to define what sex and sexual health and sexuality means to you. And so oftentimes that doesn't really center you. So we want to examine it and then get rid of all the stuff that doesn't work for you and replace it with a framework that does center you and allows you to experience true joy and pleasure in your life. And then the third thing is to nurture sexual connections. So first with yourself, and then if you want to grow into sexual connection with others. So definitely check out that workshop at the top of my page. It will help you begin to examine these things and to start living as the subject of your sexual narrative and your sexual story. And it will just unlock another level of connection and pleasure in your life.